I'll ask you the question, and I don't know how many of you will sort of, you might know this, but what is the first organ to form when we're developing as embryos from the time of conception? What is the very first organ that forms in our body? And if I were to tell you that it is the heart, and then the circulation links up to the heart, that would be all right. You might say, yeah, maybe I can believe that. But I'll also tell you this: the heart, when it starts, about 12 days after conception, the heart is already a linear heart tube that starts beating. So by the time we're talking about between 2 and 3 weeks, we got a heart tube that's already contracting. This is before anything else much happens. Yeah. And you know that this is one of the first things we see when mother goes to, after knowing that she's pregnant, she goes to the doctors, they do a scan, know that there is a baby there. And the heartbeat is what we use to monitor that the baby is alive and is doing well, and that is what we use throughout. So this is an amazing organ, no, not bigger than just the size of our fist, but it is so perfectly formed, and it has the capacity to do such a remarkable job, not only just from birth, but throughout our lives. This heart, it has to not only, let's go on. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it's not only about the heart itself, it's about how it makes all of those right connections to all of the blood vessels that have to supply every cell in our body, whether that's from a brain cell to the bottom of our feet, to every little organ that we need to have to survive and be normal, healthy human beings. So this is a really complicated system. And it's a remarkable thing that it starts, it's starting its beginnings at about 12 days after conception, and it lasts us all the way through to the end of our lives. And you know what that means? A normal heart, human heart, will beat for an average of about 1,000 times in one day, average. Now, if you're doing more, or you're running, or you're doing a lot of exercise, it'd probably be more. And that's about 35 million times a year, and about 2.5 billion times in a lifetime. So you can see that this heart is working really hard, and it keeps us alive and it keeps us well. Are we looking after it? Let's have a look. Now, if we look at the heart is mainly muscle. That's the part that it makes all the connections, it beats to sort of provide the blood. But in itself, it's a muscular pump, and it needs itself to have blood vessels supplying it with oxygen, supplying it with food supply. And what happens is that if we have any blockages in those blood vessels supplying the heart muscle, that's when we end up with problems. That's when we can have muscle damage, we can have heart attack. And we'll come a little bit more to this later on. But if we look at the statistics worldwide, it's really rather frightening. Heart and cardiovascular diseases affecting the heart and the blood vessels and all of the connections, the communication, cause the most death across the world. And this is premature death. We're talking about death that happened before the age of 70. That accounts for about 32% of all deaths in the world. And you know what? This is set to increase much more, because there is a prediction that because there is a global, we're getting a lot of older people coming along now, we're all aging. That increases the risk. But you also have this epidemic increase in things like obesity and diabetes and all of the lifestyle changes that people make, which I'll talk about shortly, that contributes to this as well. So there are certain things we can do about it. We can, aging, all of us age, but we can do something about the other things to keep ourselves healthy and to therefore help our hearts in that period as well. So let's have a look and see why. I thought it would be helpful for us to consider why is heart disease such a major problem and cardiovascular disease. When I talk about this, I talk about them a bit interchangeably, but it means it's the blood vessels affecting the heart, but sometimes it can affect other systems. Like if it affects the brain, the blood vessels in the brain, you'll have a stroke. It can affect the kidney, and then you'll have kidney failure. So I'm talking more generally about the heart because a lot of people will be familiar with that, but it can also include other things. But why do these problems happen? Let's have a look. For you to go from having a normal heart to having a heart attack, a lot of things happen. It doesn't happen overnight. That's for most people. If you got genetic problem, that's different. But it always takes a long time, and this is like just a simple way of showing it. You have changes in the blood vessel that supply the rest of the body or the heart. You get a buildup of fatty deposits in the bloodstream because there is damage in the bloodstream, and that doesn't happen overnight. It takes decades. It takes tens, 20, 30, 40 years before you can see it. Why is that? The damage is happening earlier. We only see it later on. When the damage happens early, we don't actually detect it. And because we can't detect it, you don't get any signs. You can't recognize that the damage is happening and therefore stop the damage. And so by the time we get symptoms, we're getting chest pain, or we're getting short breath, or we're getting whatever other symptoms arises, by then it's sometimes a little bit too late because you already got the damage happening in the blood vessels. You already get some damage happening in the heart. And I'll come to why that is so important. Now, as I said, aging is one of the main contributors. This is a normal process that you get wear and tear as we age. These types of changes will happen. We can try to slow down the process, but it's massively accelerated. It's speeded up when you have disease like obesity and diabetes, and the same with things like smoking. Because what happens is that you get release into the bloodstream of high fatty acids, high blood sugar, damaging chemicals that comes from the smoking or whatever it is. And that in itself causes inflammation. When you get inflammation, what happens? You get damage to the blood vessels. You get stiffening of the blood vessels, you get clogging up of the blood vessels where you might get a blockage form, and that then breaks off, and that blocks this blood supply to the heart. It's a heart attack. If it blocks the supply to the brain, it's a stroke. Now, what is the problem with the brain and the heart in particular? When the cells get damaged, they're what we refer to as, they're highly specialized cells. They do a particular function, and you can't get them to sort of divide and replicate. Skin cells, you cut yourself, the skin cell can divide itself and it repair, and the wound gets healed. That does not necessarily happen in organs like the heart because the cardiac muscles are so specialized. The same with the brain. The nerve cells are so specialized that when they die, they die. And replacing them is a real challenge. And that's what scientists have been working on for so long, to try and understand how that can happen. So that now becomes a real challenge. And I just want to put this video up just again, because that just...
Your arteries, a system of tubes that transport blood around your body. Over time, the buildup of fatty material can damage and clog arteries, restricting the blood flow. This is known as atherosclerosis and can lead to heart attacks and strokes. There are several causes, including high cholesterol, which can clog up your arteries over time, High blood pressure, which can damage areas in your artery walls, making it easier for fatty material to build up over time. And smoking, where chemicals in tobacco smoke can also damage arteries, leading to this fatty material buildup. If a fatty deposit breaks down or ruptures, a blood clot can form around it. This can block your artery. If this artery supplies blood to your heart muscle, it can cause a heart attack. If this artery supplies blood to your brain, it can cause a stroke.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Dave? Yeah. Okay. So that was just summarizing what I had been talking about. Now let's look at the figures a little bit. So heart disease is a major problem. Let's look at the figures a little bit. This is from American population, where you get a mixture of different types of people. And they look at the differences in risk in men and women. And you can see this first one is talking about any cardiovascular disease. The second one is heart failure. Look at the difference between men and women. You get a much higher risk of heart failure in women. You get more risk of heart disease in women. You get myocardial infarctions, a heart attack. Higher in women, and the same when you talk about death from heart disease, any kind of heart disease. So women seem to be, this is more recent figures, seem to be at higher risk of dying from heart disease, getting heart disease and dying of heart disease. Now, why is that? You can see this even better if we look at this slide here. This again is from American population, but it's a global thing. It's what we've discovered over a long time. Not sure what I did here. Yeah. So if you look at this graph, I know it's a graph. It's a bit boring, but if you look, this black line is talking about looking at heart disease, death from heart disease in men. And you can see that this is in the 1970s, right? That is quite higher, is much higher in men than it is in women, the red line. But because there was an awareness that men were dying of heart disease, a lot of measures were put into place. A lot of research was done. Doctors were looking after men. Men were being advised to live healthily and look after their hearts. And then look what happened. Over the next 10, 20 years, the numbers start dropping in men, and it's still dropping at 2007 when this this paper was published. But look at the numbers in women. It not only went up in the 1980s, it went higher up in the 2000s and 1990s. And even when it started dropping, it's not dropping to the same extent as we get in men. And that number is actually remaining a major problem, because this is a report that came out in 2021 by the Lancet Commission. This is a big commission that was done to look at heart disease in women. And they found that 35% of women globally were dying from heart disease and cardiovascular disease. And look at the changes. Let's focus on the deaths, which is in 1990, that was 6 million women globally dying from heart attack and cardiovascular disease. By 2019, when they did this study, that number had gone up to nearly 9 million. So instead of death in women going down, it's still going up. And that becomes a real problem. So we're now starting to look at that in a bit more detail to try and understand, why is this the case? And this same report showed that the major problems facing diagnosis and treatment in women are linked to some very specific points. Heart disease and cardiovascular diseases in women are systematically understudied, so we don't understand what's going on in women, underrecognized, not being diagnosed, early enough because the symptoms are different, undertreated because they're not diagnosing quickly, and because women are excluded or very small numbers are included in clinical trials. We don't know how drugs affect women. And because of that, look at the statistics. 50%, up to 50% women, when they go to the doctors with a heart attack, and they will be misdiagnosed. And because of that misdiagnosis and late treatment, women are 70% more likely to die of a heart attack than a man of the same age having a heart attack. Now, that's quite shocking numbers. Why is this the case? And it's very interesting for us to look at this, because that is how, a scientist, we're learning what we need to do. That's how doctors are learning what we need to do. And that's how all of us within the community need to be aware of this, so we can know the risks that women face and then what we can do about it. The first problem around this is that there is not enough consideration paid to the sex differences in heart disease and cardiovascular disease. So if you look at the heart, women's heart is smaller. The muscle cells themselves, the heart muscles, slightly smaller. Blood vessels are a little bit narrower. There are differences in how the disease are formed. In men, you might get blockages in the big, what we call the coronary arteries, the big main vessels supplying the heart. Women, you can have a lot more damage going on in the smaller, what we call microvasculature. But they might go for a test, and the doctor would send them for an angiogram, which is what is used to treat to diagnose men. And the angiogram would come back clear, and the doctor would say, well, there is no evidence of a heart attack. And the woman gets sent away with some pain relief or something. And in the meantime, there is damage happen, and the damage is continuing to happen. And because of that, that's how we get these problems. What's the other problems? Let's look at symptoms of a heart attack and signs of a heart attack. This is different in men and women. In men, the main thing between women and men is chest pain. But not all women, not all men will, all women will show chest pain. Same with men. You see that they can get different types. You can get nausea and vomiting, jaw pain, neck pain, back pain, shortness of breath, squeezing pain or squeezing pressure. Women, you can get some of those symptoms, but look at the other things. You get dizziness and fainting can result from a heart attack. You can get chest pain, but not always. The pain might refer in a different location. And it means that because it's not in the chest, they get misdiagnosed. It might come up as like indigestion. It might come up as fatigue. And all of these things, because it presents in women differently, they go to their doctors and they can be told, all right, you need to rest, you're under a lot of stress or something. They get sent home, and in the meantime, they're having a heart attack and they're not being treated. The other problem is that clinical trials for drugs and treatment are based on men. And because of that, how women respond under these conditions to those types of drugs, how they respond to treatment, we don't even understand that fully. And you talk to a lot of women and they would say, oh yeah, heart attack is mostly a man's disease. I don't worry about it too much. That misperception of heart disease and cardiovascular disease being a man's disease is a second major problem. How did this misperception happen? Women, especially young premenopausal women, produce a lot of hormone called estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen in particular is an interesting one because it's produced by the ovary in large amounts in young women. And this actually does have a lot of protective effects. I am not showing, going to go through too much, but look at what it protects. It protects the heart from stress. it protects the blood vessels and cause the blood vessels to relax rather than be contracted and stiff. It increases um, the good fatty acids like the high cholesterol, the uh, uh, high density like lipoproteins, which is nice and healthy for the heart. And it reduces the low density lipoprotein, which is not the good one, and sort of triglycerides. It also blocks inflammation from taking place. So it is quite protective. But when we also look at what happens under other conditions, like when women go through menopause, and all women will, it's a natural part of the aging process, we lose that protection to some extent. And you would get changes in the type of fat that the body produces. You will get changes in how the body responds to insulin. So you might get more people coming up having diabetes and signs of diabetes, high blood sugar that can cause damage in the bloodstream. You might have damage to the heart because it becomes a bit stiffer. The blood vessels become stiffer. It doesn't beat as well. And there is a more of inflammatory response going on. So you could see that there are lots of ways in which these changes can cause a much higher rate of heart disease in women. And this is especially so in women who have early menopause, when it comes a little bit earlier than normal, like about 50. Normally, it will come about 50 years or so. Anything earlier than that, if women get treatment, it can actually help to protect the heart. But it's about recognizing that and doing something about it. There are other things that affect women as well. Sometimes complications happen in pregnancy, like gestational diabetes, high blood pressure, preeclampsia. All of these can actually increase risk of heart disease in women. And the same, women get treated for breast cancer, or they get autoimmune disease like lupus, mainly affect women, and that increases the risk of heart disease as well. And other things that mostly affect women, like emotional stress, depression, being poor, being sort of less socio-economically sort of well off, those all of that can affect heart, can increase the risk of heart disease. Men can be affected, but in a lot of societies, they found that women were disproportionately affected by this. So you could see that those are some very important causes. But look at the other causes. Look, we know that for men and women, things like obesity and dyslipidemia, excess cholesterol in the bloodstream, especially the low density and the triglycerides, can actually increase risk. Hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, all of that increase risk. And these also increase the risk of each other getting other things. So diabetes will obesity will increase the risk of diabetes and hypertension and heart disease. And the same way with hypertension as well. So you could see how they play the interplay of these things can actually affect heart disease. But look at what happens in women. Those same risk factors that cause damage in men actually increases risk quite significantly in women. And why is that? It was shown, for example, take diabetes or high cholesterol level increases the risk of a woman having heart disease by 44%, that's nearly 50%. Increases the risk of death after a heart attack. Increases the amount of heart attacks in women by about 30% compared with men. And women with diabetes are much higher risk of getting complications like stroke and another heart attack after first heart attack. And all of these are because things like diabetes and cholesterol can actually damage the blood vessel and block the protective effect of estrogen. So even younger women having these diseases, if they're not under control, can actually be at higher risk of getting heart disease. So that is something we need to think about. Look at hypertension. Again, hypertension increases the risk of heart disease in men, but in women, it increases that risk even more. And now, because of lifestyle changes, more and more women are getting high blood pressure at even younger ages, as early as 30 and 40 years. So you can see we're increasing risk all the way through our lives. And in women, hypertension, a high blood pressure can increase the risk of stroke, heart attack, heart failure, stiffening of the blood vessel, and kidney disease. And the problem is that women are less responsive to the common drugs that are used for treatment in hypertension because these are all tested in men. So the dose and all of that might be variable for women. The same with drug related side effects. We don't know what exactly they are in women. Women tend to have a lot higher side effects than men see. We see in men. We don't know why these differences happen, and there isn't enough screening going on. And because of that, and the treatment being based around men, women with hypertension are at much higher risk of getting heart disease, heart attack, and dying of it. If we look next at what else, smoking, for example. These days, a lot more women have taken on smoking. A lot of our youngsters are smoking. In women in particular, if you compare a woman of a certain, whatever age with a man, a woman is 25% higher risk of getting a heart attack, heart disease. And again, it's because smoking actually damages the blood vessel, but it also blocks that protection by estrogen. So you could see how it acts on a number of different levels, and smoking itself can increase the blockage in the artery. It can increase the risk of blockages in the heart, coronary heart disease, increase the risk of stroke and clot formation. So we're talking really significant differences here. The other thing I want to draw your attention to, and this is talking generally across, I mean, I know we're all in different countries, but relating it to perhaps the Guyanese diaspora who were, we're mainly South Asians of Indian origin or from of Black origin. But look at the differences in the risk of some heart disease. This is just I've put the graph up. All it is to say you look at um, the light blue line here is looking at European, so the white population. The darker blue is South Asians or of Indian origin. And the other line, the other bar is Afro-Caribbean, African and Caribbean. If you look at this, you can see that men, Indian men and women are at much higher risk of getting the heart disease. And the same with stroke, although more Black people seem to be at risk of men and women of getting stroke. But if you look at other things like the differences in other diseases, heart attack, you get a much higher increase in people of Asian origin, about 67% higher risk of getting heart disease and a heart attack. And stroke, again, much higher risk compared with in Black people, you get 50%. It's still a high risk. And stroke is 24%, affecting both men and women with a heart attack and heart diseases, mainly the Black women. So you can see that ethnicity or genetic makeup actually does influence this, and is something we've got to bear in mind. Other things which I'm not going to talk about, again, I pointed to earlier, sort of cultural differences, social deprivation, socioeconomic. So as a community, we have to look after each other. We have to take that responsibility to take that out there and make sure everybody is looking after their hearts. Everybody can be healthy So as a community, we can do something about it. So with that, we'll move on to what can we think about doing about this? What are the recommendations? And so these are some recommendations that came from a number of different papers. This one was, I took it from an American Heart Association recommended paper in a journal called Circulation. And they show that you need to have engagement from a lot of different groups within our community. We could talk to the doctors and the specialists. They need to be aware of the differences in heart disease in women. They need to be aware of the sort of risk that women present, especially if they have premature menopause, if they have complications in pregnancy. How are they going to take that into consideration when they see a patient? How are they going to then engage with that patient to help prevent damage? Scientists are necessary to understand those differences a bit better because that would help quite a lot. And I'll come to that in a minute. But we also have to engage all of us, men and women within our communities, have to work together at this to make a difference. So let's look a little bit at what I was talking about with the research. Once we can understand that process of how the disease happened, it's like what happened with the men. We showed that they were at risk. We showed the reasons for it, and you could see that over half a decade, the risk, the death rate was going down. We need to now do the same thing with women. Raise that on, get our understanding up so that we can understand the disease process better. We can identify what the differences are between men and women who have cardiovascular disease and heart disease. We might be able to then find new treatments. The science is what led us to find statins that can lower cholesterol. They finding the same thing is treating high blood pressure using calcium channel blockers. The only way that happened was because scientists were able to figure out how you can block channels in the heart and the blood vessels to stop them from being stiff and contracted. So you want to relax them. And those are the things we really need to do now to find special treatments for women. We want to find different markers that we can pick up the disease early on. Remember when I was saying it starts decades before, and we need to pick it up at an early stage so we can do the treatment in enough time to stop the damage happening. So, and the last one is then to design different treatment that will help different ways of detecting heart disease in women. What's the other thing we can do? We can think about raising awareness in our community. What are the sex-specific risks? Menopause, pregnancy complication, etc. Let women be aware that when, the risk of from diabetes and obesity and smoking and having hypertension, so we can control those better. Some of those we can't help, but we can control them better. The same about treating other factors. We need to look at the signs and symptoms, the differences in women versus men. We need to look at involving women in clinical trials so that we can actually do something, get some proper drugs that can treat disease properly in women. And we also need to think about how we can prevent it. And in going to the last slide, I'll just talk through some of the things that were recommended. It's the common sense things. A lot of them are common sense things. Promote healthy living. That's the main message we can think about. How do we do that? We will all have, or genetics would make us have different disease. If there's diabetes in the family, we're likely to get that, but we can control it well. If there are certain other factors in the family, we have to protect ourselves with that. How do we do this? Have a healthy diet. Eat low salt, low fat food, less refined food. Instead, replace them with more healthy food, lots of whole grains, lots of fruit and veg, all of those types of things. Increase activities, whether it's walking, try to walk 30 minutes each day in the week, or any other activities that you enjoy. Dancing, going to the gym, swimming, whatever it is, so long as it gets you moving, gets some exercise. Exercise is absolutely the best thing for a lot of things, whether it goes from heart disease, preventing heart disease, to curing at least helping you to cure depression, to maintaining sort of good mental health as well. Keeping a normal body weight, make sure that you're sort of keeping an eye on that. What else might we be able to do? We want to sort of avoid things like smoking, minimizing the amount of alcohol we take in, reducing stress. How can we do that? We will all be familiar with this, doing breathing exercises, doing our yoga exercises, doing meditation, meeting with a group of people that you can talk to, or you can do something you enjoy, painting, sort of whatever it is. Get enough sleep. Sleep is now becoming identified as a key risk factor. Lack of sleep can actually increase stress in the body. So get enough sleep. And then the other thing is, like I said, certain things we can't really avoid, but we can do something to control it. With high cholesterol, we can use our diet, we can use medications like statins. Controlling our blood pressure, use a medication that if you're on that. Get exercise, do these, avoid salt in your diet, and all of these types of things. And diabetes, which is particularly, Indian people seem to be much more prone to diabetes and hypertension. These are things that we really need to consider in how we are going forward. And of course, checking in with your doctor regularly so that you can know that your risk is controlled. If you are worried about anything, you can get it seen early enough. And I think that is it, sis. Yes.
Thank you so very much, Anne, for that presentation. I'm sure we all learned something from it. Even if we may think we know about heart health, there is still more to learn, because as we know, the sciences keep finding, new problems, new ways to solve them. Certain things still remain, basic things, like that last slide Shan showed, how to prevent, and we know that prevention is always better than cure. How do we prevent having health problems? And I do see that our yoga is hiding in the background. So come on, yoga. We need to see you. You need to take us into our prayer time, because we are in our prayer time. And I guess he's not coming on. So, brothers and sisters, I thank Shani, Dr. Shani, on your behalf for this wonderful, wonderful presentation, wonderful, informative presentation that may help to change our lives, that may help us to prevent getting a heart attack tomorrow or the next day or the next. So thank you, Sean, so very much. And I see Luke is here, so I'm going to hand over to him. Namaste, Yoga. Over to you, and over to you to take us into our prayer time as well.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you, so carry on. Let me see 1 second, please.
Sure.
Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
We hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. And indeed, brothers and sisters, namaste, salam, good evening. And, I hope we can all learn about having a strong heart and, I must tell you, when my sister was talking about how the evolution or the raising of the standards happen among men, I am happy to tell the women online and the three on the panel that you see women, the men do listen. We do listen. So there you go, and that curve has shown that good things happen when we listen to the medical professionals and stuff like that. Lil, thank you. You are my little sister. I'm on Temple of Light. I'm 193 years old now. And brothers and sisters, we are on our prayer time. And as we get into our prayer time tonight, I want to ensure that we can all remember that the topic has come in a week when we are discussing resilience. And for us to, as we discussed 2 nights ago, for us to really develop strong mind, we need to pay heed to our body. We need to have a strong body, strong organs, and the ability for us to be resilient in every aspect of life is important to all of us. So I'm so glad to have been part of our discussion tonight. And brothers and sisters, we are in our prayer time. And as we ask our dearest Didi to take us into prayers, or Didi, I don't know if you want our doctor professor to take us into prayers from England. Well,
Yes,
there you go. Popular
yes,
by
Joe.
popular vote. Our sister from England will be taking us into prayers. And over to you, dear Lil. You have a couple of minutes. Please take us into prayers. Over to you.
I thought you would have had enough of me hearing me witter on. Namaste, brothers and sisters, and salaam alaikum, and good night to all of you. It is a pleasure, as always, to join you in joining you in prayers in this virtual temple of light. So, are we starting with the Hindu prayers?
Yeah, you have 5 minutes to do prayers.
Okay. Let's all join in prayers. Oh, oh, oh. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Akanda Mandalakaram Yatamina Characha Tatpadam Darshakamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Om Asatoma Sargamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritangamaya. Our salutations to that Lord who is the embodiment of peace and bliss. Salutations to that Lord who is the auspicious and benevolent power. Salutations to that Lord who is the giver of peace and tranquility. Thou art the blissful power of this creation. Our salutations to thee. Salutations also to our Guru, Mama and Papa, or Guru Swami Veda and Swami Rama, and our love and namaste to each of you, brothers and sisters. If I may join with doing the Gayatri. Om Bhurvuvah Swaha. That's how we do Varenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. O Lord, O personification of true existence, intelligence, and bliss, everlasting, holy, all-wise, immortal, thou art unborn without any symbolical distinction or organization. Omniscient, sustainer and ruler of this universe, eternal protector and preserver of this universe, all-pervading spirit, ocean of mercy, thou art the life of this creation, thou art an all-blissful being, the very contemplation of whom wipes off all our pains and sorrows. Thou art the sustainer of the universe, Father of all. May we contemplate thy holy, adorable nature so that thou mayest guide our understanding. Thou art our God, who alone art to be adored and worshipped. There is none beside thee, who is equal to thee or above thee. Thou alone art our Father, ruler and judge, thou alone bestoweth happiness. Om Satoma Saragamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Mritam Gamaya. Lead us, O Lord, from unreality and falsehood unto reality and righteousness, from darkness of ignorance unto light of wisdom, and from death and misery unto immortality and eternal happiness. Did would you lead in the guitar grotto, please?
Sure. Om Yajagrato Duramadaiti Devam Tadu Saptasya Tataivaiti Durangamam Jyotisham Jyotirikam Tadme Manaha Shiva Sankalpamastu Tadme Manaha Shiva Sankalpamastu. O Lord, O Divine Mother, that far-going light of all lights that flies the distances in our wakeful state, and even so when we are asleep, that which is our minds, may that our minds be filled with beautiful and benevolent thoughts, only beautiful and benevolent thoughts. May our hearts and our minds be filled with contentment always, and O God bless us all. Keep us all safe and healthy, especially our healthcare workers and our frontline workers, wherever they may be. And oh God, bless us all with the discipline to come to thy divine feet and sit in adoration and meditation every day. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Brothers and sisters, with all the love in our hearts, we pay respect to that divine spark within each and every one of you. God bless. You're muted, Yog.
Thank you, Didi. Brothers and sisters, we continue to pray as we now join with our dear Sister Christina, and she takes us into prayer. Sister Christina, over to you.
Thank you so much, Brother Yog. And thank you so much, Annie, for sharing your wisdom with us and heart, especially many of us as women. We know, how important it is. But the question I actually had, or I want to ask, if it's, we know that women body goes through a lot through childbearing, and most people will, some women that have like more than one make a lot of children, and the stress and all the things that the body goes through. Is it safe to say that as you get older, especially when you go through menopause, and when you go to the doctor, they would say, well, when you have certain age now, you have to take cholesterol tablets because it will affect you. Sometimes you might have the bad one or the good one. It might be low, it might be high, but you should take cholesterol tablet. Why? Or, they would not say that women can take an aspirin, not every day, but maybe like once a week or once every 2 weeks, just in case, seeing that they're not picking the problem up so easily in women, that can help them to, even if a woman is suffering with it, could help to clear the blood, thin the blood a little to make it flow. I know that was a question, I really want to ask. I don't know if you want to just give a few minutes, to say.
I'm wondering after.
Probably Shan or Sister Christina, both of you. It's prayer time now, but what I would like to suggest is Shan, come back another day and we have questions, questions from our audiences, questions from, whoever. But Shan, if you want to put it, quick answer to Sister Christina after prayer, of course.
Okay,
we'll allow
no problem.
time for that.
Wonderful question, but yes.
Okay. Join with me, my brothers and sisters, and let's give God praise and thanks. Our God and Heavenly Father, thank you for your blessing. Thank you, O Lord, for your inspiration, O Lord. You open our understanding through many sources, O Lord. And I thank you for bringing our sister Shani here to share her experience with her knowledge with us, that we all can be enlightened, O Lord. that we can help ourselves by taking note of how we can prevent certain things from happening in our lives. Thank you, O Lord. I pray you continue to bless her. Thank you for each and every member that is praying here. I pray that you will guide their homes, protect them all, keep them all safe, O Lord. Thank you that we can gather, we can pray, O Lord. We can lift your name up on high. We can worship you. Lord, we are forever grateful. I pray for anyone who is sick at this time that you will touch them and heal them. I pray for those that lost loved ones, you will console their hearts. You will give them the strength to overcome their pain. I pray for our world, oh Lord, all our people. We know the struggles. We know everything that is happening around us. Lord, I pray that you will have mercy and you will have compassion. You will look down upon our people, oh Lord, and give them the strength and the hope to go on. Bless them all and be with them. Thank you once again for our children. Thank you for guiding them, protecting them all, and keep them safe. Lord, each and every day we lift our children up before you, and we ask you, Lord, to continue to guide their every step. Take away all negativities from their hearts and their mind, and help them, O Lord, to always pay heed and to do what is right. Bless our children, O Lord. Bless them all and keep them safe. Thank you once again for this privilege, O Lord, that we can gather here to praise you. Lord, we give you all the glory and all the honor. For in Jesus' holy and precious name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Christina. And brothers and sisters, let us continue to pray. As Master controls, please take us into our Islamic prayers.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم.
Ameen. Brothers and sisters, we light our candle, we light our day, and we pray that may God bless each and every one of you, your home, your children. Lord, let your blessings, let your light be there all around us. Let there be light, let there be light, let there be light.
There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There is a spirit who brings a fire, ignites the candle, and makes his home. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world. Frustrated brother, see how he tried to light his own candle some other way. See how your sister, she's been robbed and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the lonely, the tired and worn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle and go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world.
Be the light that you are, brothers and sisters, and shine on. And once again, we just call to say we love you. We just call to say how much we care. We just call to say we love you. We mean it from the bottom of our heart. Love you all, brothers and sisters. Love you, my dearest Lynn. Love you, Sister Christina. Love you, my dearest Didi. Brothers and sisters, God bless you all. It's been a pleasure to pray with you once again, and we'll certainly be praying again tomorrow evening. Do remember, give thanks and praise to God, and before you sleep tonight, remember to thank God once again. Lynn, it's been such a pleasure to have you, dearest Professor, Dr. G, and all of the above from our part of our world, England. A place that is always cold and dreary, mind you, but with warm hearts like you there, makes it all glowing. But brothers and sisters, we want to take a moment to apologize to Master Control for taking a little excess time. Over to you, Didi.
I would hand over to Shan. I promised that she can take a few seconds to reply to Sister Christina.
Did I think your idea of perhaps having another session where we can probably answer some questions would be good, because Sister Christina, the question you asked, really the sort of things that we need to think about. So very, very quickly, it's not a it's kind of, there are some risks, and it's important to talk it through. How easy, it wouldn't be enough to talk it through now. The cholesterol lowering drugs is a really important one for women to start taking note of, and actually going on early enough to stop any risk of developing heart disease. So I would suggest that is something, and postmenopausally or perimenopausally, as we're going into menopause, it is a definite risk. So I would suggest taking those on board. With the aspirin, that might be a little bit more of a complication, because you have to be a bit more careful with that. But maybe I'll try and get a GP or somebody like that who can join us for the next session to offer some medical advice as well as scientific advice.
Okay, thank you so much, Shan. Sister Christina, thank you so much for that question. And it gets us to where we've agreed that we do need another session, Professor. So you can't say you're busy.
Oh dear, I've walked into that one, didn't I?
Sister Christine, my dear, I love you very, very much, and I love you so much, my beloved. Yoke, love you with all of my heart. Brother Roche, thank you so very much, and I love you so very much, Sister Renee, Sister Sharda. Our children, Arvin and Vidya, love you both very, very, love you all four very, very much. And brothers and sisters, of course, we love you all so very much, and we will be seeing you again same time, same place tomorrow for another session of our program. Let there be light in our blessed virtual temple of light. And I'll let you know the next time our professor is coming. For all of us, have your questions ready so we can ask her, and she'll have 40 minutes to take questions and answer them. Until tomorrow, brothers and sisters, we love you very much. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Jai Sitaram. Good evening. God bless.